Good day everyone, I am Annalyn Soriano and I'm going to discuss program course and intended learning outcomes. Under is the construction of program learning outcomes, course learning outcomes, and intended learning outcomes. So what is learning? Learning is what we need need to acquire by our students for them to learn something for what we have to teach. So learning can be defined as the lasting change caused by experience. Learning cannot be observed directly, but it can be inferred from behavior. So when the behavior of the learners change, meaning he acquired learning, he learned something. Next is, according to Fink 2013, for learning to occur, there has to be some kind of change in the learner. No change, no learning. And significant learning requires that there be some kind of lasting change that is important in terms of the learner's life. So this is what um, I'm talking about earlier, that if the learners change his her behavior, meaning he acquired some he learned something, he acquired learning. And then the first topic that I'm going to discuss is um construction of program learning outcomes. Program learning outcomes are measurable expectations or anticipated outcomes. A, com- a comprehensive and well-developed list can provide information about student learning, curriculum, and teaching. Assessing or measuring learners' learning outcomes can inform the institution about the educational environment. Learning outcomes are measured at various points during the educational experience. So, program learning outcomes are the measurable expectation. It is the expected outcomes that we need to acquire by our learners at the end of the program. So program learning outcomes are essential element of learning-centered institution. By stating clearly the outcome that occurs as a result of the education, institution and programs become better positioned for using techniques and pedagogies that are effective for advancing student learning. So in using program learning outcomes, we are using different techniques and pedagogies which help to achieve the more to achieve the clearly outcome for the um, learning. Program learning outcomes are statements that specify what students will know or be able to do as a result of an activity and are expressed as knowledge, skills, attitude, or values. They should be observable and, when appropriate, measurable. So the program learning outcomes are it it is the statement which is the specify what are the students will be able to do after uh, during the program and after the program, what are the skills that the students will need to achieve, what are the characteristic or what are the values, attitude that the students will need to achieve at the end of the program, and it should be observable and measurable. So according to Bloom's taxonomy, use of action verbs from Bloom's taxonomy help to ensure that the student learning outcome is measurable. So according to Bloom's taxonomy, which is hierarchical design of ways of thinking, which is action or performance verb that classifies learning or cognition into 6 levels, categorized from less to more complex. According to Suski 2009. So the first level is remember, level 2 is understand, level 3 is apply, level 4 is analyze, level 5 is evaluate, and the upper level is which is create. So I have here list the different action verb under the remember. remember, which is action verb under the remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So the action verb, for example, the remember is acknowledge, activate, arrange. So understand is ascertain, assert, classify. So example for apply is advise, advocate, apply. And the analyze is analogize, analyze, argue. So evaluate, adapt, appraise, argue, and in create is assign, assemble, cite, and compile. So I list here the different action verb that we can use in creating or constructing program learning outcomes. So the next topic is course learning outcomes. A course learning outcomes is specific and measurable statements that define the knowledge, skills, and attitudes learners will demonstrate the completion of the course. Learning outcomes are written with the verb phrase and declare a demonstrable action within a given time frame, such as by the end of the course, ideally. They should be observable, measurable, and achievable within the specified period. So the course learning outcomes are, it comes with the verb and the um, object, which is it helps the student to um, demonstrate what is the given, demonstrate action, what is the give with the given time frame at the end of the course. It should be measurable. So, writing an effective learning outcomes that is measurable involves the structuring of two parts, a verb and an object. The verb phrase describe the intended cognitive process or what the learners intended to do. And the object phrase describe the knowledge students are expected to acquire or construct according to Anderson and Cratwall 2001. So this is what I'm talking about earlier, which is in constructing course learning outcomes, we need to apply the verb plus object. So the verb are the cognitive process, which is the remembering, understanding, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create, which is we need to add the object with the knowledge. And there is factual, conceptual, procedural, and metacognitive. So later on, I will give some examples on how to use these course learning outcomes. So to Bloom's revised taxonomy provides a framework for transforming competencies into essential learning outcomes or intended results. The revised taxonomy organizes these verb or cognitive processes on a scale of lower order to higher order thinking skills. These categories define what learners should be able to do at each level of cognitive complexity. For example, having students explain or discuss a concept will demonstrate their understanding in the lower level, and having a student calculate or justify will demonstrate their ability to analyze and evaluate at the higher level. So, explain and discuss will be on the lower level, and when the students will calculate and justify their they have the ability which is at the higher level. So these are the verb that we should avoid in constructing course learning outcomes. So the first one is understand. So the verb understand, we cannot easily measure what the learners understand in the topic unless he used the verb that is measurable, like define, explain, calculate, and evaluate. The next verb is considered, realize, and appreciate. So these verb are, we should avoid this verb in constructing course learning outcomes because these verb are not measurable. So it's not easy to identify which level of the students understanding is. So the verb that are measurable are define, explain, calculate, and evaluate. So when the students can define the the topic, we can easily note that the learners understand the topic because he can define it. He understands. We can define. We know that the learners understand the topic if he can define the specific topic. If we use this measurable, like this: define, explain, calculate, and evaluate, we can easily know how level of understanding our learners have. So I have here some example of not measurable, good, and better. So the first one is understand the significance of Neolithic Revolution. So the good is explain the significance of the Neolithic Revolution. The better is explain the characteristic of the Neolithic Revolution and its impact on the early civilization. So this is what I'm talking about earlier, which is the verb plus object. The verb is explain and the object is the characteristic of the Neolithic Revolution and its impact on the early civilization. So the better constructing course learning outcomes is when you add verb to the object. So the second example is become familiar with evolutionary theory about human behavior. Good as evaluate the origins of evolutionary theory about human behavior. And the better is evaluate the evidence for various frameworks surrounding evolutionary theory about human behavior. So the third example is list here, and please read, and we will proceed to the intended learning outcomes. Intended learning outcomes do just that. They articulate what students should be able to know, do, and value by the end of the course. They are also the key to creating an aligned course, a course in which content, context, instructional strategies, learning activities, and assessment are worked together to support student achievement of the outcome. So, intended learning outcomes are combination of the context, instructional strategies, learning activities, and assessment to work together in creating achievable outcomes. So the intended learning outcomes describe what a student should be able to do by the end of the course. Student will be assessed on whether they can demonstrate the intended learning outcomes, and therefore they must be stated specifically and clearly. They should address one or more of the five characteristics of learning outlined in the Principles of the Scottish Credit and Qualification Framework, or SCQF, at the appropriate SCQF level. So these are the principles. First is knowledge and understanding, practice, applied knowledge, skills, and understandings, generic cognitive skills, communication, ICT, and numeracy skills, autonomy, accountability, and working with others. So when you are constructing intended learning outcomes, you should have this at least one or more these principles to achieve the to demonstrate the intended learning outcomes to the learners. So these are the things to consider when writing aims and intended learning outcomes. So what knowledge, skills, values, and attributes will your student bring to the course? What knowledge, skills, values, and attributes do you want them to develop? What will students need to do to demonstrate what they have achieved the ILOs? It is important to ensure that course ILOs are consistent with and contribute towards program ILOs which are usually not directly assessed. Try to avoid using verbs such as understand, appreciate, be familiar with, and know in ILOs, as these verbs do not clearly indicate what level of understanding or knowledge a student must demonstrate in assessment. So, like in the program learning outcomes and course learning outcomes, this verb are like understand, appreciate, and be familiar with are should be avoided because these verbs are not measurable. So the next is it is fine to use the same active verb more than once in the ILOs for a course if it is expressing what you want students to be able to achieve. And the last is ILOs will be used by both staff and the student and should help to ensure clarity about the purposes and intended learning outcomes. So, that's all. I hope you learned something on constructing program learning outcomes, course learning outcomes, and intended learning outcomes. So, that's all po. Thank you.